Hey, I'm Alex. This is Learning Curve. You guys should know the drill, so let's do this. How are you guys doing? I had a great month. I was hoping to be able to release a video faster than this, but this video took a long time to make. Well, the build took a long time to make, of course. So, first, the good news. I don't have to be limited to 15 minutes anymore, so I'll be able to take a bit longer time to tell the story. That said, I kind of like the 20 minutes format, so I'll try to keep it short and sweet. And today's build took 3 weeks, every day. So that was a long build, and it's gonna go very, very fast. So hang on. Damn, this is fast. So I started with the drawings from top, bottom, and on the side they will guide me for the old project. And then I started working on the cockpit because that was the more important part of the build. And if I couldn't nail that part, the whole thing would fail. So what I did was stack cardboards and then cut a rough shape of the curve, then that I sanded on a sandpaper very quickly. I then started working on the engines because that was the other really big part for me, and I used those are Nestle iced tea recharge, pretty cheap, and I have like dozen of those in the drawer somewhere. So I cut part of it, glue plastic part on top of it, and in the end I made two really cool looking engine, I think. And then I work on the grid on the side of the engines, well, on the nacelles. The irony here is that I'm gonna rip them off in the end because they're too small, so I'm gonna do this again. But it's just stacking cardboard again. One big part, one small, one big, one small would make one small. That make two very sharp looking grid. I'm pretty happy with those, even though in the end I'll have to redo it again. I decided to paint them black beforehand. I'm not sure why. It makes sense at the time. So I went back on the cockpit using Bondo and then glue and then sand and then Bondo, sand. So until I had a nice little curve, and I coat a last coating of Elmer glue so that I can glue stuff on top of it and paint and stuff like that. Pretty easy. The horseshoe side of the spaceship were a bit difficult to figure out, but of course I had my two drawings to help that I use as a pattern, and I cut the access port and stuff like that beforehand, and I made a second one under it on which I glue all the details and little elements, and that I painted black beforehand again. So in the end, I would just have to slightly brush over it to raise the effect. Anyway, that was the idea. I ended up having to do a little bit of paint on it again anyway. So maybe I could have left it as is, but it makes sense at the time. Anyway, here I'm assembling the side parts and always putting some cardboard in between the parts to add structure, and a lot of hot glue. The hot glue mostly for structure elements. And that's about what I did on the first weekend. This project lasted 3 whole weeks every day. That was a long one. When it came to the side, my drawing could not be used as a pattern. It was meant as an inspiration. Anyway, And to create the patterns, I use masking tape on the side to figure out my shape, and then I drew on it the detail I wanted and used that as a pattern. And then I stock different part of cardboard. There's like three level of cardboard for the cockpit side, because I wanted some kind of rigidity, but also I wanted really different level in the detailings. For the quote-unquote windshield, I used a little plastic because I wanted the texture to be very, very, very smooth, but and shiny. But the shiny part I ended up ruining in the paint process. But the smooth part, that I nailed it with the plastic. And again, I'm using the masking tape to figure out my side piece. Really, I love using the masking tape technique to figure out my patterns. Of course, I'm new at this, so from one pattern to tracing it on the cheaper cardboard and tracing it back on the heavier cardboard, every time I had up some small little errors, and those error adds up. So even though I started with the same patterns, I ended up with two sides that were slightly different. But yeah, I'm learning. Man, it's going fast. I'm struggling not to swallow my words. Hot glue is just perfect to add structure to a project like that. The cardboard sometimes is a little shaky, but you can even add hot glue on the side on a cardboard piece that's a little too thin or too wavy to add structure to it. It's just. So I decided to work on the underside of the cockpit, and I made it slightly larger so I could send it back and cut it with some very precision cutters. Chinese chopsticks, just to add one beam in the middle of the spaceship so I could grab at it with the hot glue. And on the side, again, I did a different layer of cardboard where I put the raised detail up front, and I again painted black beforehand, and then glued it on the side of the horseshoe part of the spaceship. I should have put the details that were inside the horseshoe section, because in the end I thought I would put those details afterward, but in the end my finger were too big and I couldn't do a proper job there, so I left them blank. And that's the one of the only part of that spaceship that I'm not 100% happy with. So live and learn, I guess. I'm working on the side of the central parts. Again, I use the masking tape to figure out the shape. I'm repeating myself, and I'm using the exact same technique underside of the spaceship. Really, at this moment, that's all there is. Using masking tape to figure out the parts and cutting them and gluing them and cutting them and gluing them. I don't know what to tell you. Even though I used the masking tape technique to do the pattern, for some reason that underside of the horseshoe part was always just slightly wrong. So yeah, frustrating, but not a problem. At this moment, I'm very, very happy with the spaceship. There's a little bit of it a little later on where I'm struggling, but this part, everything is going smoothly and I'm thrilled with it. I went through so many of those bottle of Gorilla Glue. It's not even funny. it's it kind of put a little hole in my budget for that month, but yeah, I survived. Right now, I'm working on a hatch. I think I would love if it could open up and close, but yeah, fuck it. I'm not sure where I was in the project in the timeline, but you can see where I was now. And I'm just about to start taking thing off. So as I said earlier, I'm taking off the side grid because they were too small, and I'm doing it again. So I'm cutting a new pattern, then stacking new cardboard. It's exactly the same thing as the first part, but just slightly bigger. But this time I'm not gonna paint it black beforehand because I figured out that was a waste of time anyway. And this is where I'm starting to struggle a little bit. The tip of those nacelles, I knew what I wanted to do. Um, I wanted a curve profile. I wanted a, a, a nice roundish slit on the front and a slit from left to right. Sadly, in the end, I had to take out the slit from left to right because, again, small errors adding up, and those two parts weren't on the same level in the end, and both were crooked. So I thought I would sculpt it, correct it, and sculpt it back in Bondo, but I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it properly. I have no idea how I should have do this part. Um, that's something I will have to figure out someday. Still, this project is for a game I'm making with someone I know, and it's gonna be illustrated in the end. So I'm gonna be able to put the slits back as a drawing. So I'm not panicking. I'm just, this is the only part of my the maquette, the build that I'm not 100% happy with. I would have loved to have those slits in my model. Now I'm just closing everything up. You know, there's still small holes. Um, so again, using masking tape to figure out the panel I need to create to close them up, and it's just finishing stuff before I start with the bundle. Here in the editing, I wanted to show you how many time I had to put bundle and sand and put bundle sand, blah blah blah. And so I show you a lot of stages, but I don't even think I've put them all. I think I took a few days off. There was wet red dust everywhere. There still is red dust in my shop, and that's a week ago now. And I did clean the place. Once I was happy with my edges and the shape, um, I used some thin cardboard just to put a layer of small details over the ship. So we have like a lot of level of detailing, you know. And I'm pretty happy with the end result on this. I used a black primer, and then I sand it just a little bit, because when you sand cardboard, it creates a lot of fiber. So by using the primer first and then sanding, I could get rid of the fibers. And then I used a lot of masking tape, a lot of time to do the masking. Um, and as you can see, I'm trying very hard to keep my window shiny, But in the end, you'll see I just, like a dumbass, I used the flat varnish on top of everything and I lost it. Dumbass. I'm using very pale gray and a lot of stages to create my first base of white. Uh, there was a lot of layers of paint there, and then again some masking tape and some brown. And at first I thought I would use the brown on the white, but I realized that it would take way too long to cover the white, so I did another layer of black. But I didn't realize that the black would still pass through the brown, so the brown ended up being a lot darker than I expected. But the ship looks very nice anyway. And now I'm doing my favorite thing in the world, is the weathering. Honestly, the only part that sucked about weathering, it's way too short. I just love doing this thing, and everything pop out, and everything looks so much better with it. Just a little dash of a shiny metallic paint to put some scratch, and I then used a little bit of brown just to wash it a little because I overdid it. So here it is. I'll be honest with you guys. I know in the commentary track, I'm not sure it's in French or in English, I said I completed like a week ago. It's really like 2 weeks ago. And I'm kind of happy that I had to wait so long before filming the outro here, because 2 weeks ago I was kind of fed up with this thing. 3 weeks of constructions, every day. The weekend were full time, and every day I had like 3 or 4 hours to put on this. So yeah, it took a long time, but I'm super happy with it. I think it's gorgeous. There's some small misstep here and there. This is not as clean as I would like it to be. And the gray, metallic gray chipping, I kind of overdid it at some point. But other than that, I'm really happy. It's not perfect, nowhere near perfect. It's not film quality yet, but damn, it's, as a toy, it's a good looking toy. I've had it, this handy little thing. It kind of has no way for playing with it, but it's really for the stand, very simple stand that I made that allow me to position it a little, so I'll be able to take pictures and use those pictures for art. Here's the elephant in the room. It look like the Elbon Hawk from Legend of the Old Rebublic. There's a good reason for that. You guys probably don't know this. Some of you do. I draw porn for a living. Okay, don't be scared. This channel will always be family friendly, but that's just what I do for a living. And my next project is a sequel of the game a friend of, well, no, not a friend of mine, but a Facebook friend of mine created years ago. He did it for himself, was not paid, but just put it on the web. And to tell his story, he used picture from here and there, and it's a sci-fi story, and the spaceship they were using was the Elbon Hawk. So now that we've decided to do a sequel, using my heart for the illustrations, I sold him the idea that we had to redo everything, redesign everything. But at the same time, I wanted the look and feel to feel like it's the sequel of the previous game, because the previous game kind of had a little following. I'm not gonna name the name here, the game here, but Anyway, so yes, I did base the design of the ship on the Elbon Hawk. I decided to keep the horseshoe shape and the color scheme, but everything else is my design. I had to make it feel like a Star Wars ship, but there's nothing I copied from an existing Star Wars ship. Everything was my own creation. So I'm pretty happy with it. In the middle here, that's space. My finger were a little too big to put all the detailing I would have wanted. I should have done this before I glued everything together, but I couldn't. Well, I decided against it. I tried here, but then when I tried to build the nacelle on top of it, there was overlapping. It was creating problems, so I decided I'll wait to the end. And in the end, I realized, man, I just don't have the room to work. So that was a mistake. And the details here were supposed to be another kind of grid like that on the outside, but I kind of ran out of cardboard. So I had to make something up. Because I had to finish this thing. I had a wedding the next week, and my schedule was just too full to be able to keep going for another 2-3 weeks. So here it is. Pretty happy with it. Pretty proud of what I did. And I really hope you guys liked the video. I'll see you guys soon. And as usual, I swear to you it's not a gimmick. I forgot to tell you, well, to ask you about liking the video, sharing the video, commenting under the video. It's super important for me. I want to know what you think, and it helped me create my following and to make a better channel. So I'd really appreciate it. So when I started this series, I decided I would credit everyone that inspire me for each of these builds, but I'm repeating myself. So here it is. The first one is Adam Savage from Tested. The second one is Unmake, who's actually the inspiration for the old series, and the third one is Iron Wolf Production for his making technique. Man, his models are out of this world.